Let's get started. I think it's become more and more interesting. 15, oder? 15.
Yeah.
With chapter 15. Would someone like to read it loud?
I can start. Well-cultivated men of ancient times had a profound understanding of the mysterious, too deep to be comprehended. Too deep to comprehend. Just because they cannot be comprehended, I do my best to describe their demeanor. Gingerly, as if wading across a winter river, wary as if fearful of the neighbors, formal like a guest, melting like the thaw, ingenuous like raw timber, open like the valley, natural like muddy water, calm like the sea, airy like the unceasing wind. Who would calm the muddy till it slowly clears? Who could stir the quiet till it slowly revives? Those who practice this Tao do not seek fullness. Because they do not seek fullness, they can always rejuvenate themselves.
Any question, comments?
This is maybe too broad to begin with, but I'm interested basically in whether this is a positive characterization or whether there's a sort of hidden critique of these well-cultivated men. Because the word isn't, what is it? Shangren, this like the sage. It's not the word for sage, it's just this word for like a particular class of people, right?
Mm.
And just because the description seems very strange to me, it doesn't seem like the description of something that's necessarily a desirable model of a kind of person to be.
Any response? In fact, I have very similar feeling, Skylar, of this passage. The first is, I think, my first response is, as far as I read, every interpretation says this is a positive depiction of the Taoist, so the Taoistic scholar, kind of like that way. But for me, then I would think, so for example, how would the young people in Germany, right, if they only read the second passage, this gingerly as if until unseasoned wind. So what would they think, right? And they must think, oh, this guy must be weird. And some other to be like concrete. Why must such a like a great scholar, right, or Gelehrter, maybe German word better, be so? How should he be so careful? right? He should be allowed to speak out frankly what he thinks if he's necessary. He thinks necessary, for example, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So that's some of the feelings I want to share with you. Yeah. But then I think maybe at that time, I don't know, could be the society was much more dangerous than today. Then so they are more cautious. I don't know. Mm. Make
Sorry, I think you cut out for a second, or for me at least.
yeah. I think that's what I think. And so any response to that to the moment? And no, and then so the third point is nevertheless, I think this must be, or this should be some uh, positive depiction of the Taoist, because if we view Laozi as a in a whole, right? So because the Tao seem to be sometimes like quiet, empty, and so on and so forth, and somewhere somewhere very low or something like that. So I think in the whole picture, then someone who's really unified himself or herself with this Tao um, should be, or maybe, or must be even like this, right? So then our like our doubt against this kind of image may be really too modern, something from our time, or from our own view to Laozi as a whole, maybe.
Yeah, I'm curious what the others think about this question, or if they'd be more interested in a different question. But I'm just thinking this sort of natural, like muddy water, and then the question that comes in the third passage: who would calm the muddy till it slowly clears? And I'm sort of wondering if the scholars are some kind of raw material that is in a good state already because it's natural or what have you, but it has to be clarified by some additional awareness of the Tao, or like an additional step or something like this.
Mm.
Or just because the second passage, all of these descriptions, they sound like the description maybe of a sage in general, but I don't know if they sound to me like the description of someone who's in touch with Tao, like someone who is in touch with emptiness and it's like regenerative powers and stuff like this.
Any response?
Um, not not directly to that question, but I feel like the descriptions themselves are sort of like, I mean, I think someone mentioned that they're just weird because the natural like muddy water. When I think of the term natural, I don't think of muddy water. Muddy water feels like there's something slightly negative about it, or at least there's some additional point to be made there. And calm like the sea, I'm not sure. The sea isn't calm though. Like,
Yeah.
and open like the valley also feels like it could be ambiguous because the valley is like it's an enclosed area. It's open when you go down the valley, but it's also enclosed. So I'm like it feels like a lot of the descriptions here are sort of like ambivalent. It can be like, I'm not really sure it's ambivalent the right term, but it's like it has a double meaning somehow.
I think here, I understand it's like this. So we have three passages, right? Four, right? Four passages. And the first passage is one kind of like the thesis. So what are those ancient well cultivated men? And the second one is kind of like a poetic description, right? This kind of like and the third passage is like their abilities or something like that, and the fourth passage is their relationship to fullness, and I think the third passage is really important. Here, I would say there's two kind of like maybe simple interpretations, at least what I understand it. The first is if they or some at least some people understand this like if this man is the ruler of the world and he can make like a chaotic or turbulent era which Laozi was in and calm it down and bring peace to it, maybe the first passage. And the second passage is then some society which is kind of like too quiet and then maybe totally lost its liveliness and then it can make it lively again. And the second interpretation is just when he looks internally or like doing some meditation or even just um, introspection or reflection, then he can like calm his mind at the same time keeps his vitality or something like these two interpretations were simple, but maybe can help a little bit to understand the third passage, I think. How about this? Does this answer your question at all? Maybe it's just somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a complicated reading of the passage, but maybe the passage is just demands something tricky like this. But am I right? You're trying to transpose a transition between different historical eras onto chapter 15.
Historical era. I didn't put every different eras to like together, but I just want to say Laozi's time era is definitely a muddy era. The society as a whole is muddy and like just chaotic and violent, right? And just like that. So maybe here he just like, who like messiahs, please come, who can like make this this muddy word to bring them to clear and like to calm. It's like just calm it down. Let the dirty stuff sink to the bottom, and right. That's what I mean. And also the other ways, like if we look into our minds and find out so many dirty stuff and chaotic stuff, and then if a good scholar, in that sense, Taoist should have a clear mind and calm mind, empty mind, something like that. So that's the second interpretation. So here we can say, who can calm the muddy till it slowly clears in those country and in those area or in themselves, kind of like so. Maybe I just want to say that. So then, if we have those maybe those who in themselves in this country, and then we can understand the Taoist's and ability and his like self cultivation or his only build on it. But that's what I mean. Yeah.
Sorry, but Skylar, your question is how the description from passage 2 allows for the abilities in passage 3, right? Is that it?
Yeah, that was my first question. I think, it just seems important to me that it's formed as a question. The third passage, it's not saying the well-cultivated men or the scholars or however you want to translate it. They are the ones who can clear the muddy water. Or at least, sorry, in the translation, it's a question. I, of course, don't know.
Yeah, I think the original text doesn't have any punctuation, right? But like, is the Chinese unambiguously a question, or can it be read as a sentence as well?
Which one can be read as
the third passage?
Can be. Can you repeat your question again?
Because the third passage is translated as a question, but can it also be a sentence? So like not a question, but just like a proposition, or is the Mandarin unambiguously a question? The Chinese.
Every interpretation I see is translated into a question.
I'm seeing the character shu, which appears to just in every case be a question word, but I mean this is just what C text says.
And by the way, the second passage seems to be like all his appearance or behavior, right? So something outward, right? And the second part could be inward, maybe, or his function or ability.
But I guess what would it mean if that the third passage is actually a question, that it is not a description of these people that we've been talking about previously, but it's a question as to who could this possibly be? Like that would seem to make the passage, the whole chapter, really weird, no?
Maybe it's just who could calm the body, muddy till it slowly cleans, except those men, right?
Right. That seems like the straightforward way of understanding the question. It's like a rhetorical question, and it should the answer is obvious, and it's just but yeah, I guess I'm seeing in the fact that it's a question a possibility that we're getting some kind of gentle critique of the scholars. And
so,
yeah, that he's basically that it's a question that we're actually supposed to think about. Like we're supposed to ask ourselves, can the scholars actually who have been described like this, do they actually have these capacities? What would it require to have these capacities? So on and
Yes.
so on.
So what you means no, right? So because in the old times there was there was also very muddy, or either very muddy or too quiet.
Yeah, I guess I'm leaning no.
And yeah, later on, I think here is also little bit, but later on passages they will spare their words, right? What I thought was, suppose this kind of man live in a democracy, so they will never get the chance to be elected, right? Because they are too quiet.
Mm. Yeah, I think chapter 20 has an answer for what that kind of person does.
Chapter 20. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I find this passage is kind of like deal with one subject, right? It's more closely as like you can see some structural relationship between like 15 to 20 or somewhere there.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it's quite good. Then we kind of like have not only somewhere but, like floating a subject, but here's kind of like a cluster.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my impulse is to treat this sort of double meaningness of the description of the second passage
Mm.
as a reason as to why they would have this power to
Mm.
calm, like, because you were saying that you didn't think, Skylar was saying that you didn't think these qualities that are listed down really show that the scholars are following the Tao. But I feel like if you focus on the descriptions of this sort of like weirdness of it, it does sort of seem to mean that they do have some sort of ability to navigate certain kinds of intricacies of certain things.
Mm.
I think here also one aspect is the name Laozi, just means the old man or the old master. Usually he's very old. And here, this kind of like character here is also old man's behavior, right? Just not, it definitely not some people, some 18 years old, right? But rather 70 or something like that. So
I mean, I can see that for the first three lines, but do the other remaining lines correspond to an old man of 70? Like melting like the thaw doesn't quite feel like what an old man does.
mm, mm, that's true. Mm.
Katya, do you have any thoughts on this passage you want to share? Obviously, fine if not.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it because I remember in one of the, like, you mentioned the calm of the sea doesn't make any sense to you.
Mm.
But if you look on the surface, of course, there's always waves, something going on. But the deeper you go, the calmer it is. So I think we have to look at those descriptions, maybe not in always in the literal sense, but also what they could mean underneath something like this, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think that makes. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I mean it's your comment, so you respond.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think that if we sort of like push it further, we can also then say like the sea as it can sort of be calm as well as rough. So if you look at the surface, it can also sort of have this like roughness to it, and that this calmness maybe exists in knowing when to be calm and when to be rough, something like that.
Maybe. And also, we have to keep in mind that they try to avoid ego-driven stuff as much as possible. So if you are doing stuff gingerly, or you're a little bit wary, or you're just a little bit formal, or stuff like this, you also try to put yourself not on the first place of everything. You're just trying to take a step back and, just be.
Interestingly, here, this passage, calm like the sea, airy like the unceasing wind, is not seen in the 1B version, not in the 和尚供 version, and not in the 陈古印 version, which means the three most renowned version. So that two sentences are missing everywhere, like in this authority version, authorities. Anyway, it's just one, because I want to understand that what can that means, because only through the Charles Wu, it's kind of like the second one is definitely area or even hurricane. In fact, this means just so violently, like hurricanes, unseasoned wind, just like that, something like that. So maybe I would say the for the sea is not calm, but broad and clear, broad but clear, like the sea or something like that. Anyway, so I just mean the first, these two sentences were not there in other authorities, and the second is even if there could be other interpretations, like what Harris suggests. But I think I interrupt your discussion. Sorry, because it's just something I find it's just not there. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think what Katya was saying makes sense to me, in that like there's something about this description that feels close to selflessness, like a restraint or something like that, and that sounds like earlier descriptions we've gotten. I just had the chapter and I went away from it, but there's a passage that talks about like the person who's not, chapter 7, where it's like the sage puts himself in the rear and yet ends up in front. He places himself on the outside and yet remains present. Isn't it because he is selfless that he is able to fulfill himself? Which also sort of rhymes with the final two lines of this passage, like the not seeking fullness and always rejuvenating themselves. But there's still the fear, the wariness, and the fearfulness seems like that's selfish somehow. Like if you're still afraid of things, then you're being ego driven somehow. Or it seems like there's a tension. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Maybe they are wary of the ego itself, because it always creates stories and troubles. I don't think we can. I think sometimes if we have to not just take the words, but maybe go a little bit beyond, or stuff that is written between the lines, but
Yeah.
it's hard to get.
Here, I think something also want to emphasize, or I tried to say, like in this Chen version, in the passage we just discussed a lot, like selfness or value yourself, or like should have no self, or selfless, should be selfless. This two versions. Chen means Laozi has never said anything say selfless or something like that. For him, it's always value yourself. That's coherent. And I don't know in how far I can go with Chen Guyin, but 100% or so how much. But I think rather at least 80% or something like that, because selflessness, this and interpretation of Laozi is really, really right. The Chinese culture become after the deep, profound influence from the Buddhistic tradition. So from Laozi's view, I think selfless was not very, very obvious, I think. At least not central. If you interpret Laozi everywhere use selflessness, then it's, I think, become a little bit away from his time or his historical Laozi, say. But anyway, that interpretation is very, very popular, even also in China.
I mean, I think chapter 13 supports Kaizi your point, because there it's also about, like, there was this disaster thing, and at the end the conclusion seems to be that you're supposed to care about yourself so that you can care about disaster. So there is a certain amount of caring about the self. It's not like total selflessness like in with the Buddhists, even though I think he would also be against like a certain sort of like egoism.
Well, just like in fact, liberalism, right? So you have your property and you have your ego, of course, first, and you have your own rationality and so on and so forth. So you can calculate for yourself. So that way, then understand that passage. Also a little bit false, but maybe it's kind of that direction. Anyway, so I think that's to this point, selflessness in Laozi.
Should we move to chapter 16?
Yeah. This one is difficult and also important, I think. Fundamental.
Should I read it aloud or?
Please.
Push emptiness to the limit, keep still to the extreme. All things try, I observe their return. For when things grow profuse, they return to their respective roots. Return to the roots is called tranquility. Tranquility is called regaining one's nature. Regaining one's nature is called constancy. Knowing the constant is called wisdom. Not knowing the constant leads to disastrous acts of violence. Knowing the constant leads to acceptance. Acceptance means impartiality. Impartiality means inclusiveness. Inclusiveness means the way of heaven. The way of heaven means Tao. Tao means eternity. To the end of your life, you will have no peril.
This seems like a good passage to sort of pursue the contrast with Buddhism and the question of selflessness. Or just because this to the end of your life, I think literally is like closer to like the point where you're without a self, like a shun.
Mm.
And because it starts with emptiness, which is, you know, important for the Mahayana tradition.
Mm. You mean here, then it's evidence to say that the self is important for Taoist? Is that what you mean?
I'm not trying to take a stance yet. I just mean
Okay.
that the themes are also present here of self.
Okay, I see. I see.
Self and emptiness and all that.
Any other question or comments?
I'm wondering what the third and fourth line of the first passage means. All things tried, and then I observe their return. And this also corresponds to the first two lines of the second passage. So is it, I think the commentary suggests that it's some sort of like cyclical thing, where after things thrive and grow profuse, they will then, I don't know, come to an end and go back to their roots. Is it meaning this cyclical thing, or what does it mean?
I had the same question. I just didn't understand what return to the roots means.
Here, I was, that's what I mean, and this passage is fundamental. So basically, there's a lot of concepts, right? Like here, this thrive, what that mean, and the return means. And even like emptiness or stillness is, and for Chen Guyin, say this thrive means the activity of becoming. his his translations like, or not what's entstehen in means in English. What's the word for it?
Arise.
Huh?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Arise.
Arise, come into being.
Yeah, come into being. Yes. So basically here something like this, whether becoming or yeah, and this return to their return is interpreted as circular movement, or basically I think here we're say for Laozi, like every stuff around me is becoming or changing or thriving or something like that. and I will observe, or I will anschauen, right? I observe, or what's the word for?
Contemplate.
Yeah, contemplate their secular motion or their repeatedness. So here also, I think the interpretation says the most important thing is the contemplation of the regularity of the word, or the gazettes, or yes, the, how to say that? Maybe the laws, I don't know. So the regularities in the word, and what are those regularities, or how are they? They are circular, so they repeat themselves, they come again and again. Yeah, that's this. Here, some interpretation of those two words. It's not final, but it's for your like reference. So here, like I try to translate the whole long comments. Here, say the cosmos is in motion, everything is changing. But what are the regularity of this change? Because you already admit there are constants in the change. So you must say what are these constants, or what's this, yes, constant? What's the constant in this change? For the Chinese philosophers, the regularity of change is called the constant, and which is repeatedness or circular motion.
I have the English, like I have a translation of this
Yeah.
comment here.
Great.
I can read, so maybe it's, you don't have to spot translate.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that would be great. Better.
So you left off at the lawfulness governing change is that of recurrence.
Yeah, I think so. Well, you can read it from the beginning. I think it's
Sure. Yeah.
better.
The universe is always in motion, and everything is constantly in a state of transformation. But what is the law governing such transformation? If we grant that there is some sort of constancy within change, then exactly what sort of constancy are we dealing with here? According to the Chinese philosophers, the lawfulness governing change is that of recurrence. They believed that everything transforms in accordance with the law of recurrence. But what is recurrence? Simply that, when a certain thing evolves in a particular direction until it can go no further in its transformations, it will reverse into its opposite, and so on without ever ending. Things emerge from non-presence, but once present, they gradually become saturated and further evolve until reaching the zenith, at which point they start to wither and degenerate, and ultimately end up perishing. But the end bears another beginning, and new things will come forth again. All things go from growth to decline, and this is called fan, returning. At the utmost point of decline, a new beginning emerges from the end of declining, and this is what is called fu, resuming. Sorry, I don't have the tones on any of these, so I can't even pretend to do it right. Returning means negating. Resuming, in this sense, is precisely the antithesis of the antithesis, or in other words, the negation of the negation. However, in Western philosophy, the so-called negation of the negation refers to the synthesis of a thesis and an antithesis. By contrast, in Chinese philosophy, resuming mainly has the sense of rejuvenating and starting anew instead of denoting a final synthesis. In this sense, resuming differs from what is called the negation of the negation in Western philosophy. The constant movement of returning and resuming, this is the law governing the transformation of things.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for drawing our attention to it. Is the commentator, Zhang Dainyan, is he like a Hegelian or something?
Mm, I don't know much about him. I think he must be like like an academic philosopher.
Mm.
And the second, I think mm, there are really a lot of parallels between Heraclit, Laozi, and Hegel. So this line of thought, they kind of like bear a lot of parallel, I would say, answer. So maybe what John Daniel did is that is his interpretation the first, and the second is only make it more like um he elaborates this stuff more. So for us, then okay, it's kind of interpreted, right? So so we have this feeling, okay, Hegel, or at least he used a lot of those Hegelian terms, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the negation of the negation as renewal, not as synthesis. I'm just trying to look back at the, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And he even already pointed out the differences between Hegel and Laozi, right? So that's basically their differences or the parallel, in spite of their parallels.
Oh yeah, I was confused about the translation of the character which earlier was used to describe the appearance of the scholars. This character wrong here is translated as acceptance. This is the first line of the third passage of chapter 16.
Oh, okay. Demeania. So these two, they are not really related. So the first is the demeanor or the face or the appearance, and the second is really means like tolerance. I don't know why they use the same character historically, but there must be some explanation.
Okay.
Mm.
Good to know.
Mm.
I have a question about the first two lines. So, what does it mean to push emptiness to the limit or to keep still to the extreme? And if we use the interpretation from that commentary earlier, it would seem to imply that if you push emptiness to the limit, then at some point it would change into being, right?
Yeah.
Is that the point?
Mm. Any answer to this question? like especially chapter 15, right? There's a passage like who can make this basically make the moving to the quietness, and then make the lively those quiet, those are quiet, something like that. So he kind of like say every stuff goes to its opposite, but here it kind of like emptiness, you can push it to its limit and it not become being, right? And also stillness. As I understand your question like this, is that right?
I didn't really understand what you like. Can you repeat?
Hmm? Sorry. So I just want to understand what do you mean. Can you reiterate?
I just mean that if we follow the idea that recurrence is when you push something, when something reaches sort of like its fullness, it transforms into its opposite. So
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
were to push emptiness to the limit, would you then come out with being? So instead of emptiness, you have something now.
Exactly. I also want to say that. So, um, it kind of like everything will go to its opposite, but emptiness not, right? For Laozi.
Why do you think it doesn't? Why not? Like, that was my sort of my question, because it feels like that's what it's implying. But you seem to
Okay.
think that it's implying that it will not change to its opposite.
At least he does not mention that, right?
Mm.
Like in chapter 15, there's the line, who can calm the muddy till it slowly clears, who can steer the quiet till it slowly revives, right? So it according to like those thoughts, then I think I understand you say like if we put the stuff to the extreme emptiness, and then um, the something, the being will occur, right? Yeah, the being, or yeah, that's also I think what I mean here, but he didn't mention the being or something like that. And here we have a lot of knowing, right? In passage 2 and passage 3, especially knowing the constant. Sometimes he criticized knowledge, knowing, or wisdom, but here knowing the constants seems also to be positive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the constant seems to be very closely identified with Tao. But yeah, I think the next chapter maybe has no, I guess 18 seems there's a critical line about intelligence and wisdom, but
Yeah.
so wait until we get there. Yeah, I guess the thing about the comment that is sticking with me is the fact that this passage is seeing constancy in something where like someone like Aristotle might see just becoming and chaotic change and like decay and stuff like this. Like a plant growing seems like kind of the opposite of constancy in a way, because it's just sort of like a short-lived thing. Or I guess it's this like species perspective rather than like an attention to the individual that lets you see this constancy and like yeah, coming into being and stuff like this.
Katja, do you have any thoughts on this passage?
Not really. I'm just tried to read the commentary. I think the circular motion, I think that we are on the right track. Also, the constant change is the constant. So, like you mentioned, a plant growing follows this constancy of permanent change. Like a flower is always starting to grow in spring, have a flower seeds in late summer, early autumn, and then decaying and surviving winter somehow and start again the next year. So there's always a circular motion, and that's just part of nature. And if we work with nature and if we observe the nature, we can thrive. If we work against it, then we are struggling. Something like this. Or?
Yeah, I think the violence sounds to me like the struggling against the constant, the nature.
Because everybody of us has to accept that we are getting older and stuff. And there's the constant cycle of being born, growing up, getting older and dying, which is, the same like in the plant. It might take us hopefully a bit longer than just a year to be here, but the circle is the same for every living thing. I mean, even a mountain gets born and growing and then is decaying and disappearing again. So if we work with that constant thing and just accept it, so knowing the constant is called wisdom. If you just accept that it is the way it is. Yeah, not knowing this constant leads to disastrous violent acts of violence, because you can't force that wheel backwards. It's just constantly changing and evolving and in motion. Something like this. So we have to accept it and then make our peace with it.
Yeah, that seems in the spirit of the passage to me.
Maybe this emptiness is also a kind of peace, because emptiness also means there's no drama or anything going on. It's just, peace and acceptance also. Kind of. In a way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't really know what to do with this, but there's obviously like an interesting tension between the emptiness at the beginning and the sort of like profusion of foliage and everything that immediately follows, like this thriving. like that. I mean, I guess it's, yeah, I guess it's just like the source of the thriving is the emptiness, or something.
I mean, it's just nature. It's the way it is, that everything grows and then returns back to their roots.
Mm.
Mm.
Whatever those things are in comparison to the thing, the species, the being.
Mm.
And to find out something rather interesting, I want to share with you. This is the word appearance or acceptance or tolerance.
Mm.
So some, you can say this guy, or basically or this guy, is the roof of a house, you know, kind of like that stuff. And some people say, see, it's the part roof of the house, one part, and a radical, and the other radical is here. Then it's gong, right? Eden, which means here also impartiality mentioned. And here, then this one, then it's gu is the valley. So both we can say, so that's two different interpretation of this etymology. Anyway, so if it's valley, then it means also huge and acceptance, tolerance, and because here we can see the impartiality, so maybe Laozi really plays something with those etymologies here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so just interesting, and everybody can also understand it. Yeah, because it's just pictures, right?
Mm.
Yeah. And this one also, you can see this valley is also very interesting. So a small mountain, something like that, right? And there's a place between them. It's a valley. So also a picture. Yeah, that's it.
Mm.
And here, the fourth line of the second passage, the regaining one's nature, that word, mean, you can say. Interestingly, usually it means life or order, and even fate. So yeah, return to mean also could means return to the fate, return to the life. Yes, regaining one's nature translated into Charles. Yeah. Anyway. So here's really difficult and constancy. What does that mean? Also important and controversial. And knowing the constant is called wisdom here, translated. But this mean, right? And it's just two radicals together. It's just, first the sun and the second is the moon. So it's in fact it's in brightness or clearness or right something. How to say that? Erleuchtend. Enlightened.
Or
Yeah, something like that. So it's translated into wisdom, also quite interesting.
So clarity would sound a lot better.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a German version here and they use Klarheit, which would
Yeah.
fit to the clarity.
Yeah.
But translation is usually quite weird, so that's fine.
Yeah. So just I think, yeah, that's what I mean. Here's Laozi put a lot of important concepts somehow together. Kind of in 1 minute he pull out 20 very important concepts without explaining it. Any further comments or question?
I don't think so.
So shall we move on? That's what we can. We tried our best. Who would like to read chapter 17?
I can do it. The best ruler is one whose presence is unknown. The second best is one who is beloved and praised. The next best is one who is feared. The next is one who is despised. Where there is insufficient good faith, there is loss of faith. Relax and spare your words. When the goal is achieved and the job is done, everyone says, "We did it."
This is management philosophy. And I just read Machiavelli, and he
Which
said,
one?
The prince.
Which one? The prince. Okay.
Yeah, and he says the best is the one who is beloved and praised. The second one is who is feared, but the first is so hard to achieve, and the second is easier, so the second is better. And and also the second one, if you used well, and then in critical moment, people will not betray you. But the first one, usually in critical moment, they will hurt you in the back. So he said that's why. So anyway, it go away from the our subject, but just interesting. In any case, I think these two they two are aligned to say that the second that beloved and praised is somehow better than being fed.
Mm.
And also the second passage is kind of like an explanation of the best rule, right?
I must say I don't understand the thrust of the second passage.
Ah, okay.
Mm,
Mm.
especially, yeah, the final line. Everyone says we did it. I don't understand what
Mm.
the gist is.
Mm. Mm. That's a very, very difficult passage. So I think the basic you must understand what I want to say. So like must have already understood. The first is spare your words. Basically means could means in narrow sense instructions, laws, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Yes, and then the second one is also maybe both Laozi,孔子, and Plato hate sophistry, maybe just then in broad sense, then do not speak that much, or rhetoric, do not make a huge rhetoric in every small stuff. And the second is like this could be the first characteristic of a good rule, right? The second is it must be achieved or successful, right? That's of course. But as a team leader, as a whole team thinks, okay, we did it. So that's the best management is. Everybody in the team thinks that they alone achieves that. The management camps seems does not exist at all, right? Maybe that they have their own, they are motivated by themselves. They find out the best strategy by themselves, and so they kind of like did everything voluntarily with no interfere intervention interfere from the leader, say the lead. And so on and so forth. But what your question is, what does the last sentence 我自然 means? So maybe just like Tathagata, just I am as I am what I am, or I came as such. And or it just happened naturally, or we did ourselves, or something like that. So basically we are for ourselves, by ourselves. Kind of like this.
Yeah, thanks. That's very helpful. But yeah, it was somehow I found it very compressed, the argument, and didn't understand. But I mean, yeah, that seems like a good way of connecting the two passages as well, to say that the best ruler is present where people feel like they were the ones who got something done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
And how about this passage? Where there's insufficient good faith, there's loss of faith. Like literally, it means the trust is not enough. There is non-trust. So kind of like for me, it's just like I don't know why is this line, like it just means if there's not enough A, so there's none A. Kind of like the difference none A as absence of A, right? It's just tautology. And okay,
Sorry.
go ahead.
The commentary is suggesting that the two sing over here are used differently, right? That the first line means that where it's like it's from the part of the ruler, so the ruler hasn't enough sort of like credibility because they can't execute everything they promised. That will lead to the people no longer having faith in them. So from one's from the perspective of the ruler, the other is from the perspective of the rule.
Mm. Mm. And what do you think is the trust or the faith or what its function or what's its position in the whole passage? like between between those four status of ruling. So it's can we understand it's like in those four levels and the trust get lost level by level. So the best rule, somehow the people trust the ruler the most, and the second one less, and that's the worst, the least.
I think the way I understood it was that this is a reason why the best ruler is one whose presence is unknown, because you will always somehow like never be able to do everything you want or to fulfill all the promises of a good ruler. So it's best that if that, like, I sort of understood it as saying that if there is no faith on the part of the ruler or no like promises, there will not be a loss of faith. So like if the ruler is invisible, he will not even be criticized or something like that. Like
So he didn't even promise anything, so right? So he will not lose his word, lose his word at all. So that's even say that Vertrauen ist sogar nicht die Rede. How to say that? So yeah. And today I only have one English translation with me as a book, but I really want to have look at the 我自然 translation. For example, his Legis translation is, their work was done and their undertakings were successful, while the people all said, we are as we are of ourselves. So that's, he has translated into as we did it. Any further questions? Shall we go to 18? I think 18's short, or shall we end here?
I think I'll have to go
Okay.
now that we've wrapped up 17.
Okay. So
But yeah, if the three of you want to go on, of course, feel free.
any comments for chapter 17? No. Okay, then next week we begin with chapter 18.
Super. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a
See you
lot.
next time.
See you next week.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye.